This episode of Mission Log is brought to you by Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Check out this week's menu and get $30 off your first order with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/missionlog.
This episode is also brought to you by Eagle Moss and the official Star Trek Starships XL editions, a special series of large format ships officially authorized by CBS Studios. Subscribe today and receive the USS Enterprise D for 20% off the regular price with free shipping. For details and to order, visit st-starshipsxl.com.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 258, Genesis.
Welcome to Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion. Each week on Mission Log, we watch an episode of Star Trek, taking it apart for messages, morals, and meanings, and seeing whether the whole thing holds up.
You know, I remember starting this show and, well, in the beginning, there was nothing. Then Rod said, let's do a podcast. And we did a podcast. And it was fine. See, I'm riffing there, John. I'm riffing on. I'm doing a.
Then
doing a
that's
Genesis riff because the name of this episode is Genesis.
Got it. See, I thought we did the Genesis thing with Star Trek 2.
We did. We did do the Genesis thing with Star Trek 2. Did we actually do that bit for Star Trek 2? I don't know. I haven't listened to that.
We didn't. Although Dr. McCoy did his bit.
Sure.
With, watch out. We'll do it for you in 7 minutes.
Really, John, you must learn to contain your passions. John's got trivia coming up in just a moment. We got recaps and all kinds of fun stuff. But first, a word from Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Now, when you hear the care that Blue Apron takes with sourcing its ingredients, with changing up recipes, with delivering food directly to you, you may think Blue Apron is expensive. Not really. Yeah. For less than $10 per person per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-proportioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. You'll be making things you didn't even know you could make before. For example, John, did you see the picture we got from Vicky on Facebook? Okay, now here's the thing. I didn't see the latest one, but Vicky and I have had this ongoing correspondence, sending each other pictures of our Blue Apron food. Oh, there you go. Because she sent a beautiful picture of a vegetable pad thai that she has deemed her best meal yet. Then I have to go look. As soon as we finish recording, I will go look and I will thank Vicky. Now, you said that you've been sending pictures back and forth with her. Yes. What wonderful pictures have you sent? A lot. I've done one of my favorites of all time was a spicy Cajun-y catfish with an apple slaw that was just knockout. And it's another one of those dishes that I could do on my own if I wanted to, because once I learned the technique, it's something I could do over and over again. And I got a couple of different dishes. I love eggplant. I love all food. I don't know if you knew that about me. I love all food. Seems to be. Yeah, but I love eggplant, and I got it in a couple of different months, prepared a couple of different ways, and sometimes it was a star of the show, and sometimes it was just an extra ingredient, just a little extra love in that dish, and doing roasting one way and then roasting one time with miso, and it was absolutely delicious. And now I do that again because I can just throw it on anything. So Blue Apron has taught me how to be creative with ingredients and use them in different ways. Now, the cool thing is John is saying, he can go out and get the ingredients that he's gotten in past recipes and put them into his own cooking. But the ingredients that they send you, we really can't say enough good things about either. I mean, both their quality and their sustainability. Meats are responsibly raised. Seafood is sustainably sourced. Produce comes from farms that practice regenerative farming, all of which leads to good meals about which you can feel good as well. And I will say, too, the holidays are going to be a busy time because if you're listening, soon after we record this, we're getting close to that. Wouldn't it be nice to have some good meals for which you don't have to plan or shop, considering all the other planning and shopping you're going to have to do? So if that sounds good to you, it is time to give Blue Apron a try. And you can do that
And you can check out this week's menu and get $30 off your first order with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/missionlog. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. That's blueapron.com/missionlog. Blue Apron, a better way to cook, and a huge thanks to Blue Apron for sponsoring this week's show.
John's got trivia coming up in just a moment, but first I am going to let you know how to get in touch with us. Mission Log Pod is the address to find us on Facebook, Skype, and Twitter. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we would love to hear your voice. 323-522-5641 is the phone number to call, 323-522-5641. Our email address is missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our show website, including Discover Documents, is at missionlogpodcast.com. And please do remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log. And with that, holy cats, we got I think this is the 7th to last episode, maybe.
I
know.
You're killing me.
Oh, trivia will go on, but really one of the last versions of trivia for TNG, presented by our pal, Mr. John Champion.
Well, here we go, Ken. Today's episode, Genesis, was written by... All right, do I really even need to explain this?
Go ahead.
It was written by Brannon Braga.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah?
So I'm expecting some real, hardcore, studying the human condition this episode, really sort of digging into deep morality and stuff like that.
You see that's it, it's funny because the last few episodes that Brannon has written, not really that.
Oh.
Really more like...
well, now remind me, because I'm having trouble. Which ones were the ones that he's written recently? I can't... I'm having a little...
Now, most recently, Eye of the Beholder. Not to be confused with The Eye of the Beholder from the animated series.
Right.
But,
yeah. Eye of the Beholder, I remember we said it seemed like there could be some real depth there, but they chose to go a different direction.
They chose a ghost story, actually. Yeah,
they did, as a matter of fact.
And then, funny enough, Sub Rosa, where they also did a ghost story.
Yeah. See, we found a lot of deep stuff to talk about in that episode, but I don't think it was stuff we saw on the screen.
Okay, I'm going to throw another one at you here.
All right.
Phantasms.
Oh, man. I can't remember. I seriously cannot remember.
Here we go. Crew has nightmares, and Data has a phone in his chest.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a Brannon Braga episode, then.
This is a Brannon Braga episode.
All right. I take back most of what I said a minute ago.
Now, here's what's really interesting. This episode was directed by Gates McFadden. Mm-hmm. And a little bit of a landmark here. Now, she's not the first woman to direct an episode of Star Trek. That honor goes to Gabrielle Beaumont. But Gates is the first woman who was a cast member to direct an episode. We'll have to wait a little bit longer for the next one when we roll around to Voyager. Now, this is Gates's only professional film or TV directing credit. But remember that she's been working in theater and dance for longer than she has been in front of the camera. She worked with Jim Henson. She was a choreographer for the movie Labyrinth.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And we get rid of Dr. Crusher pretty early in this episode so Gates could spend her time behind the camera. Incidentally, the Northridge earthquake in 1994 disrupted the production schedule and meant ultimately that she couldn't finish her preferred cut of the episode. But yeah, this is her work. This is her premiere and only directorial credit in film or TV. Now, this episode got 3 Emmy nominations: sound mixing, sound editing, and of course, makeup. It won the Emmy for sound mixing. And for those of you who may not know, I think we've talked about it before on our show, but mixing is a category about the overall sound of a show. Editing is more about the creation of individual sounds and effects. So this one won for mixing. Now, I just mentioned makeup for this show, and Michael Westmore benefited from this episode being scheduled right after the holiday break so he could spend a little extra time on the very complex effects that he had to create. There is a deleted scene on the bridge, if you're watching the Blu-ray version of this, just a little bit more on the bridge, with Worf complaining that Troy turned up the temperature, then Riker looking confused. But very importantly, there's more screen time in that deleted scene for Lieutenant Junior J.
Did you get to talk in the deleted scene?
Oh, no, of course not.
Okay.
No. But a little better shot of her in that one. But actually, that scene does help. It hides a transition. When Deanna leaves to go take a bath, Riker then relieves Worf, because Worf is being surly. And that's why Riker is then on the bridge with Lieutenant Junior J at Tactical, because that happens in a very short time, and it's just a cut from one scene to another. But this actually explains that transition. So light on content, but it fills that gap for the sort of the blocking of the episode. Now let's talk about guest stars. And again, not really. We do have the last appearance here of Dwight Schultz as Reginald Barclay on televised Next Gen at this point. He will be back, though, in an upcoming movie and later in Voyager. And Patty Yasutake is back for her penultimate appearance on TNG on the small screen. Oh, and we have a gruesome death for another guest in this episode, Ensign Dern. He's played by Carlos Ferro, and he is torn up real good.
They tell us that we lost our tails, evolving up from little snails. I say it is all just wind and sails. Are we not Starfleet?
Prologue. Tonight, there's chaos in sickbay. Riker has cactus thorns in him after rolling around with a female crew member in the Arboretum. Reg Barclay has kind of a flu, which Dr. Crusher treats by activating the T-cells of a dormant gene. Data's cat Spot is pregnant, and so it turns out is Nurse Ogawa. Act 1. Time to blow things up. Worf has been tinkering with the photon torpedoes, and they'll use a field with too many asteroids for target practice. It works okay, except that one of the torpedoes zips away on its own and can't be destroyed remotely by Worf's invisible touch. Data and Picard, after some protest from Riker, will have to retrieve it with a shuttle. Before they leave, Data enlists Barclay to help out with Spot, should she give birth to kittens while he's gone. Seems like he's the only one on board other than Data that the cat actually likes. With Picard and Data away, Worf is tasked with solving all the problems of his failed guidance system and weapons upgrades. He's getting testy, and Riker asks him to take a break, which leads us to 10 Forward, where Worf is eating just so much food. He's really going at it with a vengeance. Deanna Troi joins him. They were supposed to have lunch together, and she's a bit testy that he started without her. No problem. She'll catch up by ordering a double caviar and then all the water. Seriously, all the water that she can handle. She says the Enterprise is dry, and it seems like what she really wants is a home by the sea. Worf is still so worked up, beating himself up about the errors he made in the weapons guidance system, and Troi says he should get some rest. Cut to Worf, in his space pajamas and designer sheets, being very restless until he starts tearing up those sheets and the memory foam underneath them and balling up on the floor like some kind of animal. Act 2. In engineering, Geordi and Barclay are working on resolving some of the oddities that have cropped up around Worf's torpedo failure, power fluctuations, phase discriminators, all of the above. It's more than Riker wants to hear or can even comprehend at the moment, and when an alert pops up about a plasma conduit, Barclay and Geordi need to go investigate. Barclay is acting like a guy who is downed a case of Monster energy drinks, all fidgety and energetic. He's ready to do a quick repair, but Geordi notices that some kind of acid, an organic solvent, has actually eaten through the deck plating. Too tired to carry on at the moment, Geordi exits while Barclay buzzes around to try to solve this other problem. Meanwhile, newly minted Commander Deanna Troi has been in command on the bridge, but she's so uneasy, cold, and dry, and when she tries to adjust the environmental controls, Worf shoots back, figuratively speaking of course, that it's already too hot. She leaves, saying she needs a bath. He just seems put off by anything she does. Riker is back on the bridge, but he seems disoriented, confused even, when asked about the performance review on the new weapons systems. A little embarrassing maybe for the guy in charge, and speaking of weapons systems, where is Worf? Well, he went to check on his girlfriend Deanna, who is indeed taking a bath, in her uniform, and shivering. Worf rushes in, not out of concern, but he seems in a violent rage. When he tries to pull Deanna out of the tub, she resists. The more she resists, the angrier he gets, and he bites her face. Now in sickbay, Deanna is still cold and thirsty. Nursegawa tells Dr. Crusher that there are more reports coming in about crew members who are either too hot or too cold. Might be some kind of virus. Checking out Worf, Dr. Crusher notices he has an odd growth on his neck, kind of like a venom sac. She asks him to open his mouth since he's not talking, and at that moment he sprays her face with some horrible toxin. The doctor is put in stasis, but Ogawa reports to the bridge crew that she should be okay. Except that, there's something going around, and it really is messing people up. Riker admits it. He can't concentrate. He's having trouble with decision-making. He's trying, but when it comes to command decisions, he's throwing it all away. When Geordi comes in for guidance on how to handle the Worf thing, who has now escaped and can't be tracked, he doesn't quite know what to do. When everyone leaves the room, Riker loses himself in confusion when he tries to send a message to Starfleet. Act 3. Remember when Picard and Data left to pick up that errant torpedo? Yeah, that was 3 days ago, and they are headed back, only to find that the Enterprise is adrift and not where she's supposed to be. At least they won't be shipwrecked. When they try to radio, there's no reply at all. Spooky. What they find on board is a quiet ship with faint animal noises all around. Most systems aren't working and the main computer is down, which means they'll have to keep it dark. In Deanna's quarters, the picture is a bit more grim. They find Deanna all right, face down, in too deep, in the tub, and turning into something non-human, an amphibian specifically. And where she's injured, there's Klingon DNA. Things aren't much better on the bridge, where there's a dead guy at the con. Sensors show that the entire crew complement have been affected, animals everywhere, with most of them centered in the Arboretum and aquatic lab like it's some kind of artificial Congo. Oh, and there's Riker in Picard's ready room looking positively Neanderthal. And what the hell is he trying to do with Livingston? And what the hell happened to Livingston? When Proto-Riker attacks, they stun him with a phaser. An analysis on a tricorder reveals that Riker is de-evolving. Act 4. Data's had some time.
Wait a minute. So he is not man?
No, he is Devo.
D-E-V-O?
He is Devo. D-E-V-O.
Sorry to interrupt.
Act 4. Data's had some time to work out what happened. An artificially introduced T-cell has made dormant pieces of genetic code reactivate among the crew, human and non-human alike, and it's spreading like a virus. Ready for some worse news? Picard has it too, and he has about 12 hours to go in his present form until he starts to de-evolve too. Data can do a good amount of work in his quarters since his computer is isolated from the main computer and he can turn it on again. In there, he and Picard find that Spot had kittens, which look fine, but Spot looks like an iguana, with a lovely pink collar. Strangely, the virus wasn't passed on to the kittens, and it might have something to do with the immunities that are present for newborns. What is it they need from amniotic fluid? Antibodies! Antibodies! Just so happens that Nursegawa conveniently revealed her pregnancy before Data left. That might be a lead to follow. The ship is rocked with a malfunctioning warp plasma vent, and checking out the problem through main engineering reveals that Barclay has turned into a horrific giant spider because de-evolution or something. Picard is really freaked out, and I don't blame him, but he is really scared in a very non-Picard way. Data remarks that as he is de-evolving, he might be taking on the trait of a rather skittish little animal that was the food for a larger beast. In sickbay, well, Nurse Ogawa is doing the best imitation of Dr. Zira that you have ever seen. And in her state, Data might be able to find those antibodies he needs. Also, whatever became of Worf is now a hulking, horrible monster beating down the door in the room they are in now. Act 5. That Worf thing is strong, angry, scary. We don't even know because all Data and Picard can see is the damage he's giving to the door right now. Picard is seriously freaking out, but he's kind of putting the pieces together about the Worf thing, probably beating down the door to get to his mate, the amphibious Troy. So, they'll use that as a lure. Data can synthesize Troy's pheromones, and Picard then draws Worf away from sickbay by anointing the air with the alluring smell of amphibian. Worf monster is chasing scared Picard all over the ship, and once Picard gets to the non-functioning turbolift, he's got a sort of escape route through the shaft and then a Jeffries tube, except that Worf Beast is after him and spraying that acidic goo everywhere he goes. It just so happens that in the area where Barclay had earlier set up a bypass, Picard can electrify the hull plating around him and stun Ogre Worf into submission. Not a moment too soon, either. Data has been hard at work this whole time. He was able to repair the genetic sequences in Nurse Ogawa and release an antibody into the environmental systems on board. Lickety-split, it works. Next thing you know, the crew are all back to themselves. Dr. Crusher shows Barclay what went wrong. He has a very specific anomaly in his genetic chemistry, which made the artificial T-cell activate all of his dormant genes, not just the one she was targeting. Not really a place to lay blame on Barclay or Beverly. It's not about us, but it must be some misunderstanding. And look on the bright side. They can name this brand new awesome disease after the first one who expressed it, Barclay's protomorphosis syndrome. And that's all.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
I gotta say, this proves, though, that, you know, every Genesis song is somebody's favorite Genesis song, and everybody, and, you know, is also not somebody's favorite, or at least favorite, or whatever. What you say about Star Trek, you know, I just can't believe you didn't say that the interior of the ship seemed like a land of confusion.
That was, you know, it was on the list. All right? It was on the list.
Or the Arboretum might have been a land of confusion. They don't want to go there because it's a land of confusion. Seriously, I have to ask after this question and after this episode, and after a lot of the things that happen on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
How is Picard not informing a family of one suicide per week?
Because if this happened, just please, no more.
The most you get, like, acknowledging how difficult this could be is when Deanna says, I better clear off my schedule. But that actually just seems to be about Reg.
Yeah, right.
And the fact that, now he's going to have this big head because this thing is named after him, his defective genes, his horrible, ridiculously god-awful, nearly destroyed the Enterprise defective genes that Reg Barclay has.
Right.
And so she's going to have to clear off her schedule. And I'm thinking, or, maybe you could talk to the guy who nearly killed the woman that he seems to maybe kind of love, maybe. Or somebody killed that thing, that was driving the ship. I'm sorry, the ensign. Something killed the ensign that's driving the ship. Eventually, they're going to figure out what did that.
Yep.
Probably Worf. And then, that's going to be something he's going to have to work through as well. Yeah. But everybody's fine at the end of it,
Yeah, because remember, there's over 1,000 people on board. And there's kids, and there's animals. And we just don't know what they turned into and what ate what.
I will tell you, I did find it interesting that they did say that, the largest concentrations were in the Arboretum or in
the aquatic lab,
the water park. Yeah, the aquatic lab. Thank you very much.
Close enough. Yeah, wet and wild. Yeah,
wet and wild. Exactly. Come to Hermitage Landing, which, somebody who lives in the Nashville area or grew up in the Nashville area in the 1970s, busting a gut right now, I promise. Because Hermitage Landing, that was all the rage. Yeah, we really only, it's again an amazing coincidence. We pretty much only saw animals that look like the people we already knew.
Yeah.
That's so weird how that happens.
Yeah, so strange for such a big ship. Look, there's a lesson we can get out of the way right away in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, all of you within the sound of my voice, don't try to diagnose yourself. Nothing good can come from that. You might be turning into a spider, and you wouldn't know until it's too late anyway. So step away from WebMD. Let your doctor do their job.
All right. So you think it was Reg's fault then, this whole thing?
No, not saying it's somebody's fault. Because we clearly, well, okay, look, at the end of the episode, he says, so this is my fault.
Right.
And she says, no, in a way, it's mine. Actually, Beverly, it is your fault. So, she came up with the plan.
Yeah.
And she's like, we're going to implement this plan. Oh, but here's the thing. It was a mistake. It was an honest mistake.
I assume, though, that that's a thing they just do, right? Because when she said it out loud, I was like, isn't that like, gene therapy, which is like one of those things that they sort of frown on in Star Trek?
Yeah, well,
But this is one that apparently we have down, except we actually don't have this one down. I'm wondering, I wasn't even thinking about this for later in the show, but is this like sort of like are they pulling a slow Miri here? Like, hey, don't mess with your genes, man, because
right,
because they look fine, even if they don't.
Yeah. I have another question here. Can you just go get a photon torpedo? I mean, because we watch it, it's a great effect when we see the 3 fire and the 2 hit, and the 1 just zooms away,
right,
in the vacuum of space.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going and going. Does it slow down on its own? Because even if it ran out of whatever is propelling it, it's still going because it's space. And that thing was going really fast.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's a way. Maybe they put in like a retro thruster or something. Like if it gets all the way to the end of its propellant and it still hasn't exploded, then maybe they put on retro thrusters to stop it, because obviously it's missed its mark at that point, and you don't want to. It's like leaving landmines laying around in a demilitarized zone or something like that. You don't want to do that, Right. And so maybe there's a failsafe built in, and hopefully that actually worked where the guidance system that Worf designed did not. Now, I do have to ask, who is it that's letting Worf design a guidance system anyway, and why? Because he's a good security guy, right? And he's a good fighter. Yeah. And he may be able to think tactically. Oh, that's fine. But does he then have to design the tool that he's going to be using? I mean, it's like if they'd said to Patton, all right, well, I like your idea. Go build a bunch of tanks. And then we'll see how this does. I mean, Worf's this is going to sound like a weird statement. Worf's the thinker in this situation. Somebody else needs to be the doer. Somebody else needs to be the guy who, builds the guidance system.
Yeah.
When he's talking to Deanna and he's like, I built that guidance system. And she's like, well, there's your trouble.
Yeah, because until now, I had no idea that you could build a guidance system.
Exactly. Have you been taking a night course in engineering? Have you been hanging out with Geordi a lot? I mean, because
you're not a physicist as far as we know.
Right. Yeah. Nor is he, any kind of engineer as far as we know. He's good with a batleth. I'll give him that. And he's a brawler. You give him that too.
I would think that Worf's contribution to that whole conversation would be like, he goes to an engineer, physicist or whatever, and he says, so right now we have photon torpedoes. I propose we make them blow up bigger.
So I have an idea for a guidance system. What's that? A better one.
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay, we're on it. We're on that.
There's a line here early in the episode. Data informs Nosagawa, I have spent the last 9 weeks as an expectant parent. I would be happy to share my insights with your husband. Data, falling into that all-too-human trait of presuming to tell other people life advice from your own experience.
Don't you hate that? Don't you hate that?
Right?
Man.
Right?
So I've got have you ever owned a dog?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, a couple of times in my life.
Puppies?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't have kids, but it got to the point that when I got my dog and he was young, I didn't want to take him for walks anymore, because it turns out what you find out when you're walking a puppy, you know nothing.
Yeah, right.
And everybody else who's ever seen a dog knows more about raising your dog than you. And your 5-minute walk ends up taking 45 minutes because somebody's going to tell. There was seriously an old guy in my neighborhood at the time who had like a schnauzer. And that thing, because he was like in his 70s, not the schnauzer. The guy was like in his 70s, and he was practically being dragged down the street by a schnauzer. But he would stop long enough to tell me how I should be raising my dog. So, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've always said that, the only thing worse than having a bad cold is the people who presume to tell you what to do when you have a cold.
Right. Because you're an idiot. That's the problem. That's how you got your cold. So really, you do need their help, John. You absolutely do.
Hey, speaking of puppies, there are cats just running around the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay? It's like Disneyland overnight. Just the feral cats just come out. That's what happens.
I was really honestly hoping that Bob Barker was not a fan of TNG. Because how sad it must be for him to be sitting there going, really? 24th century still? Really? Because you're an android. You're a thinking android with no excuse for not getting that done because you don't sleep. Have your cat spayed or neutered. Jerk.
So let's see. We're hitting all the mission log top things here. We talked about puppies, and now we're going to talk about food. Oh, and space pajamas. I had that earlier.
Yes, you did.
Food. Deanna is eating caviar. I applaud that. And Worf is eating everything. So just looking at this, so he had octopus, which is delicious, and a turkey leg, because obviously he missed being on planet Ren Fair. I did a freeze frame there. I saw long beans. I saw probably potato salad, some kind of smoked fish, like a kipper or a herring or something.
Yeah.
I think there was some dolmade in there.
Interesting.
I think there was some, Okay. And then I think there was some kind of like Sichuan chicken or something in the upper right-hand part of the shot, and then what looked like takeout from Yoshinoya in the lower right part of the shot. What I'm saying is that Tin Ford, I love that it's sort of like the buffet on a cruise ship. You can just get anything all the time.
And so all that comes to your porch in a box.
Yeah, right. Right. Oh, look, I got the octopus and turkey leg set this week. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, nice. You think you can't prepare that. And you're right. Leave that to a professional, okay? Because the whole octopus leg, it's not going to be in a box on your front door, I don't think.
No. I mentioned her in the trivia, but Lieutenant Junior J is all up in this episode, too. And I bet, here's my prediction, because we don't see her transformation, I bet she turns into an equally awesome version of Lieutenant Junior J.
That is a really interesting idea. I, however, think she turns into Gozer.
Oh.
Significantly older, has, gone backwards in her evolution, but still just totally cool. In fact, I've never seen the two of them in a room together. Just saying.
No.
Yeah.
Good point. Hey, we heard from one of our dear friends on Twitter, Livingston Picard, who is on Twitter, by the way, if you didn't know, who pointed out that he devolved into a jellyfish in this episode. And I just, look, I can't do anything about it now, all these years later, but we're sorry for the indignity that you suffered. So there it is. Yeah.
I can't believe it. Yeah, we didn't notice that until Livingston himself brought that up. But
pointed it out, and then I had to put it in there,
So you got to figure the whole time that, everybody's DEVOing on the Enterprise, right? That, it's probably starting to get a little crazy, right? Yeah. People are starting to get a little nuts. In the midst of all that, though, it was good for someone to adjust the collar on Iguana Spot after she transformed into Iguana Spot, because that collar, was still perfectly placed there, I think, to let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, either Reg did it because he just doesn't care at a certain point. He's just like, oh, look, now it's an iguana. Or, again, with just all the animals running around the Enterprise at all times, somebody was there to make that happen. It was like, last week it was a cat. Now, look, here's an iguana. Well, it belongs to somebody. So, a little bit of a question here. why did they take Troy out of her quarters and bring her to sickbay in the first place?
Wait, do you mean after she got bitten on the face, or when it was just Data and Picard?
When it was just Data and Picard, they go find her in the tub, and then they're in sickbay a moment later.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my gosh, Monster Worf is trying to break through to find Deanna. It cut to her face.
Who's like here, right, all of a sudden.
Yeah. Suffocating, I would think.
Yeah. You ask how they got Troy to sickbay. My answer is they did not get Troy to sickbay. I think the real question here is, how did nobody catch that continuity error?
Okay.
And then follow-up question, how did this script get made?
We are pinheads now. We are not whole. We are pinheads all. Jago homo. Are we not Starfleet?
They were so close to that point in the show where we get to do the deep dive into what Genesis has to offer us. But before we do that, a quick word from our sponsor, Eagle Moss. Now, you've heard me and Ken talk about how excited we are about the teeny tiny spaceships. But you know what? We and other fans were equally excited to see the official Star Trek Starships XL editions. Those are the larger ships created in response to fan demand, officially authorized by CBS Studios, and featured the premium format starships from across all the Star Trek series, plus each of the movies from the motion picture all the way through to Star Trek Beyond.
Now here's how cool all of these are. First of all, each one of the ships has gone through extensive reference study and been reproduced under the supervision of Star Trek expert Ben Robinson. And you say, expert? Here's my money. Well, hold on a second. We'll get to that. But they're also among the largest starships that have ever been produced by Eagle Moss, offering the ultimate in detail and craftsmanship. We've talked before about how amazing the ships that'll fit in the palm of your hand look. Those would be the teeny tiny starships John mentioned a moment ago. You get bigger, you just got a bigger palette with which to work. And so not only are they able to get, all that same richness and detail, but you're able to see it, well, it's bigger. So you can see it better, especially if you have old eyes like mine. Each ship is die-cast, hand-painted, and comes with an in-depth magazine featuring all kinds of information, both about how the ship was built in our universe and what the ship has done in the Star Trek universe. And, of course, it comes with that super cool collector's stand so that it looks like your ship is ever flying.
Yeah, we obviously had them on our table at Vegas, and it never ceased to amaze me. People come by and pick it up and go, oh, wow, this is really nice, and it's heavy, and look at the detail. And to this day, there's a couple of them sitting on the desk, and people come by and they see it and go, what is this? Well, go ahead and pick it up. It's incredible, right? And they go, oh, wow, this is really nice. So, yes, it's one of those things that you want to see, you want to pick up, you want to see to believe. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are two ways that you can get these XL edition starships and try them out for yourself. Now, you can subscribe risk-free. You start out with the 8.5-inch XL edition Enterprise NCC 1701D for 20% off the retail price, plus free shipping. You'll also receive 3 exclusive gifts for free worth $100 as part of your subscription, and you may cancel at any time. Additional ships will arrive every other month for the same 20% off and with the same free shipping.
Now, maybe you don't like the idea of ships just, sailing in every now and then. I mean, personally, I love it because, then you've got ship after ship after ship. You're building your own armada, as it were. But maybe there's just like 1 or 2 ships or a few ships that you want to get and you don't want to wait. You want to buy those ships specifically. Yeah, okay, you can do that. Pick and choose your favorite XL edition ships online and pay the regular price. Other XL editions now available include the original USS Enterprise NCC 1701. There's the Enterprise E from the Next Generation movies, and just added the 22nd Century Enterprise NX-01. The choice is yours. So go and make it at st-starshipsxl.com. That is st-starshipsxl.com for the official Star Trek Starships XL editions from Eagle Moss. And a big thanks to Eagle Moss for sponsoring this week's show. So, you promised heavy, in-depth meaty discussion.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess it's possible. I'm going to say it's possible that ad was longer than this segment.
Oh, really?
And that ad wasn't long. That ad wasn't that long.
No, but I think you underestimate when we start talking about a show for which we have no expectation.
All right, dude.
Well, all right. So I'm going to start out. I'll start out by saying this. I'm going to give the show some props. Not really a discussion point here, but because it's Brannon and because it's weird, I got a distinct David Cronenberg body horror feel from this episode. Just in terms of the style, and I thought, wow, this is something that Star Trek doesn't really do. Also, a bit of influence from the island of Dr. Moreau, and I would suggest that if you get into that story, just go back and read the book by H.G. Wells from 1896. Don't watch the movie with Marlon Brando because it's a more interesting story about making that movie than the actual movie. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a mess. That was just a mess making that movie.
Yeah.
Now, all right, this is one of those episodes that before we did it, we got more than a few comments from our listeners. Either saying, "Oh, this is horrible. I can't wait for you guys to tear it apart." Maybe we got some from people saying that they liked it. But we got more. Yeah, we got more than a few from people just needing to point out that the science is absolute junk.
Yeah.
It's just.
I want to say about my favorite one of those that we got about a month and a half ago, I think, because it was a while ago, because this person saw this one on the horizon. And I'm sorry, I can't remember who it's from, but I'm going to quote as best I can the email. Yeah. I think it went, "This is not how evolution works. This is not how evolution works. This is not how evolution works." And I think they were probably said that like 2 more times. But,
I think you captured that perfectly.
Yeah, I believe in the law of threes on those kinds of things, so I'll stop there. But that was a good email. I was a big fan.
It was good.
Yeah,
yeah. From my understanding, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a geneticist. But pretty much, if you change someone's DNA, you kill that person.
Okay, what are you saying?
That's I'm just yeah. Although, okay, now here's what's neat, though. I do have an app. I was just very curious about this. I have an app that allows you to enter 2 different species.
Okay.
Right? And then it shows you where the common ancestor on the family tree of life exists. Right? So you just type in, and so what I did is I typed in human and then something like, brown recluse spider. Or something like that. Just whatever Barclay, I'm just going to say he became something like that. Common ancestor about 796 million years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying there's a shot.
I'm saying there's a shot. I'm saying that, even before Brannon had that app on his phone, maybe, that he was able to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I posed a question back in the observation section for this episode about how and why they got Deanna into sickbay from that tub where she clearly needed to live.
Yes.
And why wasn't she suffocating on that table? But I want to go back to a point earlier in the show. When Worf attacked her, why in the world would they have Deanna and Worf in the same sickbay after he just attacked her?
You see, it's really interesting because this episode was such a muddled mess as far as I'm concerned that I didn't even hit that part. When I saw that you were asking that question, though, it reminded me of when they said, "No, Yeoman Rand, of course the captain didn't attack. It's like, let's go ask the captain."
That's exactly what I thought. I thought about that scene, too, yeah.
It's a bit like that, except not exactly like that, but man. I mean, you're right. They absolutely shouldn't have been there. Although, really, what you need is a level-headed counselor who can maybe tell you that might not be a good idea. And of course, she's not a level-headed counselor right then because she's turning into a frog person or a fish person. I think a frog person actually turning into a frog person, I believe.
Yeah.
And also just been bitten in the face by Worf.
It happens.
What I actually found, honestly, what I found most interesting about that whole thing is apparently Picard knows about Worf and Troy.
Yeah, right?
Because I didn't think it was even that much of a thing. But the captain's like, do you think he sees her as his mate? And then I wanted Data to be like, oh, you know about that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Honestly, that is... We're not doing that part of the show yet, so I won't do that yet.
No, I know.
Yeah. But what else you got?
Oh, wait. Have I not exceeded the time of the ad? Is that...
I don't know. We'll have to go back and add it up later.
All right, because I took that as a challenge. I hope I succeeded.
We must repeat, DEVO. We must repeat, DEVO. We must repeat, DEVO. We must repeat. Okay, let us go.
And now we come to the part of the episode where we sort of sum up our thoughts on Genesis. Where we talk about the messages, morals, and meanings and seeing whether the whole episode stands the test of time. Really quickly, I wasn't challenging you, actually, last segment, and I wasn't being quiet because I wanted to prove myself right, because I don't care. The thing is, like, in all the times that we watched this, I was just like, I wasn't intentionally being quiet there. That's what I'll say. I'm going to throw the questions to you first, though. I guess we start with the one, does the episode Genesis hold up as far as you're concerned?
All right. So I already mentioned in the last segment how we got a lot of comments about this one being one of the worst. Because, again, every episode is somebody's favorite and somebody's least favorite. And I even read, I think it was on Memory Alpha or something, that this got the, and I don't know who does this award, but the Spock's Brain Award for being the worst of Next Gen. And as you recall, when you and I talked about Spock's Brain, it was by no means the worst of TOS. It's just sort of, it has this legend around it about being the worst of the original series. But I think people remember that because it is so campy, whereas what are truly the worst episodes are just not memorable.
Right.
So big difference there. This is kind of a Star Trek. Well, it is a horror story, but it's a Star Trek horror story. And to me, it was also a little bit reminiscent of The Naked Time. Not that because we got deep insights into characters, but just that for a little while, we got to change the cast personalities up a little bit. Like for that part in the first half where you get kind of Logie Riker and you get skittish, you get skittish Picard later, but you get energetic, fidgety Barclay. You just change up who they are a bit. You got surly Worf. Well, he's always surly, but he's matched by Deanna's kind of surliness. And so I like that, where we get to take the characters out of who we think they are. The science is terrible. We know that. It's non-existent in this episode. And this is one of the rare times where I read another review. Maybe it was on IMDb or something like that. And somebody just said, well, what if they had just taken this and said, well, it's an alien thing making this happen. So that you take it off of trying to create a science-y answer. You just say, like, it's a magic techno alien thing that's making this happen, that's making people change. Would we buy that story a little bit better?
Yes.
I think probably yes, yeah. So at the end, this sort of feels to me like a crazy, over-the-top TOS almost episode to me, warts and all. You take an episode in TOS like it's like The Naked Time or like The Deadly Years, where just a thing is happening and it's making the characters change. But in that case, they're getting old. In this one, they're turning into animals. Whatever. In the case of what they did here, to me, it actually is effective horror. It's just not necessarily effective Star Trek. But then, as I said before, Star Trek is a pretty stretchy format. So I'm going to go way out on a limb here. And I'm going to say that in this weird way to me, if I can separate the Star Trek from just what happens in the episode, that you have body horror, you have a lot of dark, creepy scenes and kind of jump scare reveals, that it actually sort of works just as a piece of horror. If this had aired October 31st, 1991, and this is their Cat's Paw, I would say this is more effective than Cat's Paw. It's the Halloween horror episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And as an experiment in tone, an experiment in style, I mean, I think they knocked it out of the park with the makeup. And I think that even though certain areas of the episode are so dark, and I don't mean thematically, but just physically dark, that you kind of lose orientation, you can't see stuff, I think they actually do ratchet up the tension a bit, ratchet up the scares a little bit. So I find myself in a weird position of saying, this is not good Star Trek. This is not a good episode of Next Gen. But if I'm going to cut them any slack at all and ask, did they accomplish what they were trying to do? And if what they were trying to do was just make a scary body horror, 48 minutes, then they did. So I'd rather watch this than Sub Rosa any day of the week.
Wow, I think you're crazy.
Really?
I really do. Because this gave us nothing to play with. I don't really think you're crazy, but man, you have to take such a long walk to forgive this episode, I think, because even, as you say, even as effective horror, I don't think it works, because Worf is behind Picard, and then Picard gets up in the Jeffries tube, and then Worf is above Picard and actually spits down the venom at him, and then Worf's behind him again. Then how did Troy get out of her bathtub and into sick bay? And why would they have done that? Because she's obviously better off where she was. I mean, this was just a series of sight gags, honestly. Yeah. I mean, and look, there are cute moments from the actors, like Ogawa walking like a lower primate. I thought was actually kind of funny when she sort of like does her fists over each other as she's walking away from the table. Thought that was kind of cool. Picard's skittishness as he starts to change was kind of cool. Barclay tilting his head in odd ways didn't really feel like a spider to me, but I mean, they were interesting choices, interesting changes in movement as they begin to devolve, right? 3 of the last 6 episodes of Next Gen have either been ghost or horror. Sub Rosa, Eye of the Beholder, and Genesis. And then, of course, we also have Masks in there, which is neither horror nor a ghost story, but it doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't try to. It doesn't try to impart anything. And so now we've got you can argue with whether or not Sub Rosa was trying to impart anything. I mean, certainly we took a lot out of it that I don't think anybody intended. I mean, it was bad. But, I mean, so at least 3 of the past 6, and maybe 4 of the past 6, haven't even been trying to do anything, except for fill 48 minutes. And that kind of bothers me, especially because we're getting so close to the end. But I think that would have bothered me in Season 2 as well. And we didn't have that happening in Season 2 or Season 3. I mean, sometimes they missed the mark, but they were always trying to go somewhere. And now this is seriously another episode where it's just like, oh, you know, it would be fun. Well, it'd be fun to make Star Trek. Just a thought.
Yeah, right.
Even in passing here, and this is what I wasn't going to mention last segment, even in passing here, we get a victimized Deanna, which seems to be the same sort of fallback for TNG that We'll Fix It in the Transporter was for the animated series.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so that's bad. And I mean, and you could say, well, something happened to Beverly as well. But yeah, if you look back, Deanna really should have left this ship a long time ago. I mean, for as much bad stuff as happens to her, but whatever. The thing is, we hit a moment in this episode where I thought, you know how this could have been a fantastic episode. There's a way this could have been an amazing episode.
Okay.
Rather than watching them all devolve or de-evolve, Data and Picard could have left in the prologue. They could have come back in Act 1 and all of this could have happened. And then Data tells Picard, by the way, this is happening to you as well. So he knows that by the end of Act 1. And then we get flowers for Algernon. Then we get, then we get an examination of somebody who has found out they have a terminal illness, or somebody who's found out that they have, dementia or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or something that's going to leave them debilitated. They're going to see their faculties go away. And then we could have had honestly an amazing examination of what is happening to this individual as this goes. And still you can throw in all your body horror and your, and your horror stuff. You can still do all of that too.
Yeah.
But then we have Picard actually dealing with something, because nobody in this episode deals with anything. So it's like, we're all here. We're a little surly. Now we're monsters. Now we're better.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just, it's predictable and it's bad. I mean, it's just, I mean, it could have been something, honestly. It's sort of like when we watch Shades of Grey. And I was like, you know how this could have been good? This is like that.
Yeah.
There are ways that this episode could have done all of the horror stuff that you wanted to do and actually addressed something. And instead, all we get is 48 minutes that we're not going to get back unless you watched it twice. In which case, 96 minutes that you're not going to get back.
I watched it at least 3 times for this.
Oh, I can't add that high. I'm sorry. I don't go above 100.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, it's bad. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, I watched that. I had a really tough time with Sub Rosa. I'm glad we had the conversation that we did about it.
Yeah.
Masks was a disappointment because you felt like they were right on the edge of being able to do something interesting.
Right.
But they just didn't. They just turned it into the Brent's Voices hour. And here's what we're going to do now. And with this, for some reason, I guess I felt more forgiving, because it was just like, okay, if we just don't care and we're just going to throw everything that we can at the screen that is purely about the visual, purely about the jump scares, then here you go. They just sort of committed to that. They forgot to write a great script around it.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. No question.
Let me back up really quickly. I don't like Sub Rosa, and it occurs to me you sort of set up a bit of a Kobayashi Maru there. I don't think I would want to watch either of these again. But
oh, sure.
But if my choice is one or the other, at least in Sub Rosa, I can say morally this is wrong and here's why. Right? Mm-hmm. I can look at that and go, man, we're really imparting some bad values there. And I wish. And so it gives me a chance to think about, okay, what would be better things to think about or better things to do? Right? Yeah. It might start a conversation. This, I just want to yell because how much money, how much time. We're now under, hang on a second. I say I'm bad at math. We either only get 10 or 11 more Picard stories.
Yeah.
That's it. Unless you want to start reading novels or comic books. We only get Picard 10 or 11 more times. We only get Data 10 or 11 more times. We only get Riker 10 or 11 more times. I could keep naming characters, but I'm not gonna. Worf, we get plenty going forward. I understand that. Yeah. But I mean, we're running out of time on this show. And every time we, turn it on and watch something that I could just as easily, I could have gotten as much Star Trek watching an episode of Iron Fist as I got watching this. I could have gotten as much watching an episode of Degrassi High. Heck, maybe more, because maybe they do morals on that show. I don't know. I've never watched Degrassi High. I'm back to, and look, I know this show ended over 20 something years ago, but as we're watching it play out again, it's like, wow, I saw the most horrible car wreck earlier. I got video of it, so I'm going to watch it again repeatedly. It's just bad. It's just bad, man. But what are the messages?
Well, I was just but did we already nail the message? And was it just this accidental sort of anti-science, like, oops, well, we screwed up DNA because we're bad at medical science. Sorry, Barclay, for turning you into a spider and infecting the entire crew.
Yeah, maybe just as much, though, as your whole thing about no self-diagnosis. Because, yes, while Beverly trying to cure this thing is what set the whole thing in motion, Barclay being convinced that there was something wrong with him based on absolutely nothing. I mean, she was like, yeah, you've got this one tiny little abnormality. It really isn't anything, but I'll go ahead and fix it anyway. Yeah. So that doesn't even count, though, does it?
No. Okay. None of it counts. No.
All right.
There is no message.
That is true. Yes. Yeah. Not unlike Masks, none of it counts.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer, Rod Roddenberry. Roddenberry does so much stuff, especially podcasts. Maybe more than 1 or 2 or 3. You can check out our show, also Mission Log Live, also Women at Warp, and also Priority One at podcast.roddenberry.com. If you'd like to help support this show, Patreon.com/missionlog is the place to do that. For more exciting Star Trek podcasts, check out Trek FM, that's trek.fm. And for the latest in Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
Next week, Journey's End.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. John and Ken and I have to split. Tired of all this space junk. We have an uncontrollable urge, gut feeling, that we cannot get no satisfaction. We are through being cool, but we will see you next week. That is good. End transmission.